Hey family, welcome to today's live. We're going to get right into it. We're going to be talking about all things Super Bowl, Usher, Beyonce, all of it. My DMs, my comments over different platforms, comment sections. A lot of you have been heavily, I don't want to say triggered because that word is overused, but a lot of you have been heavily engaged around this topic. Hey, my loves. As usual, I like to moisturize before I do this. I really feel that if there's somebody who's watching from Fenty, the skincare line in particular, not Savage, but the skincare line, I want to endorse this body butter. This shit is divine. Anyways, someone said, hey, red lip. Yeah, I'm in a red lip, black hair kind of mood these days. I'm probably going to be doing this for the next couple of months. All right, I'm giving you guys time to come in because I want you guys to have a chance to settle because I don't want to have to keep repeating myself. I've been watching future lives. Hey, trainer Heather. Heather, you and I have a training session with each other soon. For those of you who do not know about Heather, she's in the Los Angeles area. She's an amazing trainer. So many people I love go to her. We have a session scheduled for, I think it's Friday. I think it's Friday. And I do want to let you guys know that as part of my whole health thing, I'm getting healthy not to be thin. I'm getting healthy because I want to be a thick snack superhero. Imagine like Laura Croft, but as a thick snack. So thinness is not my goal. Being fit and curvy is, and I know that's a very different way to approach this because most of the girls are on Ozempic and all types of stuff and want to be skeletal, and I'm not judging that, right? If that looks good on you, it looks good on you, but I like my body parts and I want to keep them. And I'm saying that explicitly because I've gotten a couple of messages from folks who have mentioned that they're noticing that my face is thinning out as I'm going through this journey. And I just want to be really intentional about the ways that we're discussing health and body image and stuff, especially on a page that's all about emotional intelligence. All right, enough of that. I gave you guys time to come in. Someone said no Ozempic. Actually, I'm not anti-Ozempic, guys. We don't do that here. Ozempic is something that works for people who not only have diabetes, but who have chronic obesity and hormonal disorders that could cause diabetes. So I'm actually not someone who's sorry, it's hot in here. So I'm in LA, and even though it's February, it was like cold this morning, and I put on a sweater, but now I'm like burning up. Oh my God. I should have put on a tank top. Anyways, I'm not anti-Ozempic. I actually think it's really fucked up for us to make fun of fat people and to talk about their health and to pretend that we want them to be healthy. But then when they do things trying to be healthy, we shame them. So if you're anti-Ozempic for size 2 starlets who want to be a size 0, fine, that's your choice. But being anti-Ozempic as a whole, I think is still slightly fat phobic. So no Ozempic slander. I'm just saying for me, my goal on this fitness journey is not to be thin. I've seen myself thin because I had an eating disorder when I was younger. God didn't want me to be like that. So I'm just going to be fit and thick, and I want to create a space, and this is something I'll be talking about more throughout the year, to create a space for people who want to be fit and thick, because those are not mutually exclusive things. Someone said, I agree, no Ozempic slander, but we're not going to lie. Most people are taking it for the wrong reasons. That's an assumption. So I don't feel comfortable with making that assumption because I looked at the stats and most people who are taking it are morbidly obese and or have diabetes. Again, guys, this is the perfect segue to what today is about. I'll give you guys a chance. This is the perfect segue because in the same way that you've all been socialized to roll your eyes at Ozempic and to think that most people who take Ozempic are the 1% of celebrities who you've heard about, when 99% of the people who take it are people who are chronically obese, have hormonal issues, and need it whether they have diabetes or not. Because let's be clear, guys, right? Being overweight for a long period of time, even though you've tried to eat healthy, that is an illness as well, right? Because there's some people in this world who are fat for reasons that are out of sight of their control. And so if there's a drug that can help them, if we were in a society where compassion was being enabled, we'd be like, yo, I've been seeing her trying to lose for 5 years. If she can take something that can help her actually overcome this, I'm happy for her. Rather than being compassionate and being happy for people, we watch a couple of rich celebrities who represent 1% of the 1%. We see them doing it for the wrong reasons, and now every single person you know who takes Ozempic is getting a side eye. That is a perfect example of how we let small nuggets of truth become widespread misinformation, which is why today I'm doing this live, which is all about not the Grammys, although the Grammys is kind of related. It's about the Super Bowl, Beyonce, Usher, all of that, because a lot of you have been puppets the last 24 hours, and you've been spewing misinformation, you've been spewing ire, you've been spewing anti-Black rhetoric, you've been acting like the very crabs in a barrel you talk shit about in all those memes you post, and I know you're not doing it intentionally. So rather than being like the girls who talk shit about people on Ozempic and shaming you for your ignorance, my solution, as always, is to educate you and give you an opportunity to choose something else, right? So I think the Ozempic conversation that we just went into, I was letting the room fill up, is a perfect segue to this conversation, right? The first thing I want to do is I want to reset the room for those of you who are new to me, because again, my metrics show that I have even more strangers wandering over to my page than tried and true folks who know me. Oh, I love you because I'm seeing all the love in the room. I love y'all. I'm sorry. You know, when I get passionate, I forget to acknowledge. Somebody said, well, you be back on with Carlos. I love how well you guys interact. I would love to be back with Carlos. We're supposed to do something in December, but I got sick. So yeah, me and Carlos adore each other. Someone said, Blue, you are so smart and intelligent. Oh, that's so sweet. All right, let's get into it. For those of you who are new to me, or for those of you who forgot who the fuck I was, because I've been getting comments lately that have made me feel like, do I need to remind people who I am? Actually, before I do that, let me just put my phone on Do Not Disturb, because telemarketers love to call me. I'm back, guys. Can somebody put a blue heart in the chat to show that I'm back and I'm not glitching so I can get started? I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm waiting for some blue hearts. I need at least 3 or 4 blue hearts. Somebody said pin the blue centric shop link. Y'all are so sweet. Yes, we'll get into all that stuff later. But for the folks who are near to me, somebody said they can hear me. Great. For the folks who are new to me, I just want to introduce myself because it's come to my attention recently that y'all are talking to me like I'm a random bitch off the street. And even though I'm not someone who enjoys reading off my resume, because I find it really obnoxious a lot of times when people do that arbitrarily, this feels like a time where it reasonably makes sense for you to tell you who I am so you know who you're listening to as I continue, right? So I'm Blue Telusma. I'm a cultural critic. I'm an executive producer. I'm a writer. I used to run a production company. I worked in the news for 10 years. I've covered every single election since the first Obama administration. This is going to be my first time having an election season where I'm not on the beat or in the press room. So I'm still working through my feelings around that. And I'm someone whose entire branding, whether I'm coaching, teaching, being academic, doing a podcast on pop culture. Oh yeah, by the way, I did a podcast with Jason Lee. I did a podcast with Melissa Ford. I have my own podcast called Humanized. I had a radio show on iHeartRadio in 76 markets with Jason for about 2.5 years with our co-host DJ Jamage. I have been in media for a very, very long time. And the irony of me, someone said your audio is choppy. Can someone make sure that my audio is good? Okay, I'm hearing that you guys cannot hear me. All right, so I'm going to jump off and jump back on if one more person tells me they can't hear me. Somebody says they can hear me perfectly. Stop talking about loving me and Carlos King and tell me if you can hear me. Okay, you guys can hear me. Okay, so somebody said go out and go back in. All right, I'm going to go out and go back in, guys. Actually, no, I hate doing that, Carmen. I really do. Because honestly, I'm really, really busy, and this is an act of love. And when I have to go out and come back in, it's more work. All right, if y'all can hear me, great. If you can't hear me, then God didn't want y'all to hear me. Honestly, I have to be honest about my bandwidth. So I've been doing media work for over 20 years, right? And because I've been in this industry for 2+ decades now, it's one of those, Carmen's saying, she's not telling me to get out, she's telling y'all to get out. Ooh, Carmen is spicy. Because I've been doing this work for 20 years, it is a very interesting, somebody said you look, you're good, perfect. Because I've been doing this work for 20 years, it's a very tricky time right now for OG cultural critics, for OG people in this industry, because we are in a time right now of what I call microwave experts, right? Microwave experts are people who are fairly new to a landscape. They set up a page, they say something provocative, they go viral, and based on their virility, based on them being able to provoke, they are then enabled and oftentimes paid to position themselves as experts. But they haven't done any educational or practical. Note that I said educational or practical, right? I recognize academia and practical wisdom as being equitable, because there are some things you can learn all day you want in school, but you get to the street and you suck at it. And there's some things you didn't go to school for, but you get to the street and you're an expert in running circles around those who did go to school for it. So I find that people who have either practical and or academic expertise when we speak about things, and some of us have a little bit of both, when we speak about things, there is a nuance, there's a social responsibility, there is a vetting, there is a due diligence that we have ingrained in us that the average person doesn't have. So what's been happening to me is, because I don't walk around reading off my resume, because I made a lot of fucking money on the back end. Let's talk about that, guys. In the media, there are two types of people who make money. Those who have big followings, who are shiny, and those who have one follower, but who have the ears of everybody in this industry, have a great reputation, and are sitting next to your fave. So I'm the kind of person where I'm in this weird space where people in the industry are more likely to know me than the general public. But because the general public has been taught to only validate those who have hundreds and thousands of followers, I know people who have 500,000 followers who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, guys. But because you've been conditioned to think follower count equals expertise, a lot of you, when we engage, you're like, oh, she only has like 30,000 followers. She must be a newbie. And you don't know that the person I'm talking to or talking about and debating with you with is someone who I have access to, and I'm doing my best to educate you without breaking the fourth wall or dishonoring an NDA. So I'm saying that to say, I'm going to be talking about people that I'm only 1 degree of separation from. And that's not a flex. That's for you to understand the stakes of why, when I speak, if I say something bold, I must really fucking mean it, because I don't get to hide like the rest of you. And be clear, you don't have to be a cultural critic for this to be true. All you have to do is live in LA and party in LA for more than 5 months. I live in Los Angeles, where you can be a caterer and have access to a bunch of celebrities, right? So it's not just my expertise in the work that I've done, it's also where I live and my proximity to these people. So I'm saying that so before anybody says anything greasy, because I've been showing y'all a whole lot of grace that you haven't earned, please recognize who the fuck you're talking to. I'm just gonna say that one good time, right? I don't like to have to do this, but some of y'all have been embarrassing yourselves. Some of y'all have been really embarrassing yourself. There've been a couple of times in the last couple of weeks that I've been on Threads and someone's been talking big shit about a celebrity, and I've screenshotted it and sent it to somebody from their team. Like, is this true? They're like, what the fuck are they talking about? None of that is true. And these people are posting these things and getting hundreds of likes and have full bass in their voice. Completely fucking wrong. Talking out their asses. So let's set the room to do something that is rare on the internet, where instead of you mistaking your Twitter outrage for fact, we actually talk about real facts. Can we do that? Can we pretend that this is not 2024 internet and this is 2001 internet, and that we're actually feeling compelled to talk about the facts because we haven't commodified rage online yet? That's the space that I want to create. Now that you all know who I am and how I move and what this space is, you now have, somebody said, yes, let's do that. Thank you, Jay. You now have the opportunity to continue this live or opt out. If you came here for some mess, man, there's so much mess. You don't have to come here for that. There's so many people who do that. But if you came here to have an intelligent dialogue where compassion and accountability take equal measure, because a lot of you guys, you either do too much compassion and enable people, or you do too much accountability and then you become cruel and inhumane. Here we do both, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is the usher of it all. I'm going to be honest, because I'm a woman in my early 40s, I grew up on Usher, okay? I was hitting puberty when he was saying, don't leave your girl around me, true player for real, okay? Usher makes me tingle. I'm not even going to lie, right? Someone said, this is so refreshing. Oh, I love y'all. Usher makes me tingle. And so there's a bias that I will have towards my eyes getting soft when I mention Usher, because he arouses me in a sentimental way. And based on, somebody said 40s, no way. Yeah, guys, you know, it is what it is. I'm black, child. I can be 12 or 100. That's what it means to be a black woman. Because Usher is someone who I just think is sexy as fuck. And because he's probably the reason I've dated people with so many Libra placements. I talked about this ad nauseum. I have a fondness for him and a softness for him. But here's the thing, though, that I love about Usher. He is so brilliant and tactful and diplomatic. The best of Libra, because Libra got some traits. But he is so diplomatic and strategic and smart about the way that he moves, that my bias towards adoring him actually doesn't matter, because he moves in a way that would get my adoration even if I didn't find him incredibly fucking sexy, right? So let's call a thing by its name. I like this man. I think he's amazing. Shout out to his girlfriend of 5 years, who apparently he married. I love him, and I also recognize that you can love somebody. And in the words of James Baldwin, if I love you, it is my job to tell you things that you don't see. So when Usher decided to do the Super Bowl, it was because Jay-Z, who has been working with the NFL Commission for several years now. I was shocked today to find out that so many of you who were talking shit about Usher versus Beyonce didn't even know something as basic as Jay-Z's in charge of the NFL halftime show. That's why I'm saying a lot of y'all are fighting outside of your element. Please sometimes spend less time pontificating and more time doing Google searches or looking things up. So because Jay-Z a couple years ago started working with the NFL in part in response to what was happening with Colin Kaepernick, to make sure that there was more of a black presence and more cultural competency in the way that the NFL moves, particularly around entertainment, which is Jay-Z's bag, the NFL has been having extra black halftime shows. That's why we had the, Snoop Dogg and them, and like it was so black the last couple of years intentionally. And so many of you who nitpicked at Jay-Z for how he spoke at the Grammys, it was so short-sighted to me because you guys don't understand when you're being strategic, and I'm someone who has been on several news teams where we've had to be strategic. I worked in politics for 10 years, guys. Strategy is my middle name, right? When you're being strategic, there's two levels of clarity. There's what you share for the inside circle, and there's the little pieces of what you roll out to the general public, right? So when it comes to media strategy, what the public knows, I call it cockroach syndrome. They always used to say when I lived in the hood, back in the 80s when we came to America and we were broke, if you see one cockroach, there's 100 more hiding in the wall. If you see one bit of messaging from someone who is strategic like a Jay-Z, a Beyonce, or an Usher, you better know there's 100 more moves hiding behind the scenes. And so a lot of times where your critiques and your banter fall short is you're acting as if what you see is the entirety of what's happening. So if we're going to turn this into an educational moment about me empowering you guys to think more critically, the first thing I would tell you is if you see one thing being said, imagine there's probably 100 more things being done that you don't know about. Stop talking about things as if optics are the entirety of the story, right? And so because Hope has been working behind the scenes for a long time to systemically dismantle what's happening with the NFL as far as the NFL being the most glorified modern day representation of a plantation, right? A bunch of rich white men are sitting around having an auction with big black bucks, big strong black men, and they're picking on which black buck, which mandingo they want to have for their team to help them make money with the crop. Think about it. The NFL is the modern day plantation. And that's not lost on Hove. It's not lost on these. We all know this, right? And I know a lot of you love football, so this is not me attacking football. This is me clearly and honestly just calling a thing by its name. And because the NFL is a plantation where the mandingos are bought and sold and drafted and traded, the same way chattel slavery did, and the rich white men are in charge at all times, no matter how rich you are, what's the one thing they won't let black celebrities do even when they're billionaires? Buy a team. The reason why there is so much kerfuffle about black billionaires, I remember Hove, Puffy, even though Diddy's name is Myers, Hove, Diddy, Ye, all these rich people, whenever they try to take their money to buy a sports team, they are met with pushback where their money does not count. And that's because there's so much racism baked into the system. We don't care how much money you have, nigga. Niggas are not supposed to own the plantation. I'm gonna say it one more time for the folks who are new to me. Niggas are not supposed to own the plantation. That's why even black billionaires have a hard time acquiring NFL teams. The biggest lie that was told to y'all in the 80s and 90s was, there's no black and white, there's just green. Bullshit. I have worked for billionaires. Those of you who know my resume, you know which billionaire I'm talking about in particular. I have been in the room with billionaires, right? Those of you who've been following me for a while know that I went to that media brunch with Kanye and I had some stuff to share, right? So as somebody who has literally broken bread on several occasions with billionaires with a B and heard them talk the way they talk when they feel like they can take their bra off and relax, I can tell you the one thing that every single billionaire that I've ever had a meal with has said over and over and over again is, they don't give a fuck about my money, I'm still a nigga. Hove even made a song saying it, and yet you won't listen. And mind you, this is not about me being a Hove fan. Even though me being of a certain age, of course I'm a Hove fan because, you know, I grew up in the East Coast in the 90s, right? But this is not about that. This is about a lot of you are so don't want to say euthanized, but a lot of you have gotten so lazy because the optics of social media makes you feel like, well, if this content creator is making $1 million deals, racism must be over. No, the fuck it's not. Because who's giving you the $1 million deal? A white person saying these 5 tokens get to be the ones that we give a bunch of money to while the rest of the niggas suffer. That's not power, guys. It's just a bigger allowance. Power means we own the shit and we make the decisions. Right? Somebody said, I'm not black, I'm OJ. Thank you guys for actually understanding that whole reference. And so because the NFL is the most glorified modern day plantation in American history that's still allowed to prevail and be clapped for. And I have a lot of friends whose families are steeped in the NFL and they know I love them. So this is not me coming against the players. I don't believe in talking shit about victims, right? I don't believe in talking about the symptoms. I believe in talking about the system itself, right? So this is not a slight to NFL players. This is about the NFL system. In the same way that when I talk about misogyny, I hate misogyny, but I love men, right? I love men. I think men know this by this time. I love men, but I hate misogyny. I have tons of white friends, but I hate white supremacy. So in this space, we're not attacking individual people because that's short-sighted and unintelligent. We're attacking systems. And within that system, Hov is exhausted because he recognizes, and this is where some of his annoyance probably comes from, and this is going to be conjecture on my part. Think about why Taylor Swift became America's sweetheart. She became solidified as America's sweetheart when Kanye West, who was drunk and unmedicated, got on stage and said to an audience of MTV viewers that this award belonged to Beyonce instead. A drunk black man struggling with mental health issues and with no emotional regulation got on stage like King Kong, grabbing the white girl, proverbially speaking, caping for a black woman. This society is not built to allow black men to cape for black women. And when they do, the men get penalized, but the women get penalized even more. Right? So if you're wondering when Taylor became America's sweetheart, if you're wondering when it became Beyonce versus Taylor, the minute that black man and all the stuff that he was working through or not working through got on that stage like a mandingo and vaingloriously said, this black woman deserved it instead, everything we've seen happen is a ripple effect of that, guys. This is how systemic racism works. Oh, you want to talk big shit? You're going to pay for it. Oh, you want to talk big shit? You're going to pay for it. So now, there's all these white folks, because subconscious bias, let's be honest about how the brain works. 95% of the brain's activity is in the subconscious, guys, right? So when we talk about conscious versus subconscious, I need you to know your subconscious can eat your conscious whole. So there's a lot of good white people who don't understand why they feel so protective of Taylor and are so annoyed by Beyonce. They don't understand it. That subconscious bias of white supremacy that has taught them to be disgusted by the optics of a black man speaking up against a white woman in defense of a black woman, the unnaturalness of that. It's unnatural in America for black women to be protected against white women. It's unnatural, and it's even more unnatural for black men to have the audacity to do it. So what happened in that moment is Kanye made a mistake, and Beyonce has been paying for it ever since. And I think because Hov and Bey and all of them understand, I don't think they are mad at him about it. I think they love their brother. I think they showed him grace as much as they could until he might have become a liability to their businesses. But they understand how this works. When Beyonce was in that stage, like, you know why she made that face? Because she knew that even though he was showing his ass, she knew she was going to be the one paying for it. You know who else sat on the stage watching a black man show a lack of emotional regulation and would later have it confirmed that even though she didn't do shit but sit there and smile, she would pay for it? Jada Pinkett Smith. I'm just going to let you guys sit with that for a second. Kanye is to Taylor and Beyonce what Will is to Jada and Chris Rock. Because here's the thing you guys don't understand. You're like, well, Blue, in one scenario, it's a white woman and a black man, so we get it, because race, right? You guys don't understand, guys. The hierarchy has nuance. There's a racial hierarchy, and then there's a gender hierarchy, and there's the juxtaposition of them both. And in that hierarchy, number one is white men. Being both white and male is the winning ticket. That's why poor white men, without a pot to piss in, who are on welfare, living in a trailer, relate more to Donald Trump than the broke niggas who live in their neighborhood. Because in their mind, even though I'm poor as fuck, I'm a white man, I should have been rich. Somebody must have stole my birthright. Poor white men still think and relate to rich white men because subconsciously they recognize that is their birthright based on how society is built. Right? And so because of that, we have to be honest about how gender intersects with race when it comes to these optics. It's so obvious to us when it's a white woman and a black man and a black woman, right? But the minute everybody's black, we think everything's fine and we're all equitable. Bullshit. The top of the food chain. I said this before on the See the Thing Is pod with Bridget and Mandy. It's so funny. After I do this live, me and Bridget have a meeting. I love her so much. We're working on some stuff together. Cannot wait to tell you guys about that. But I did a podcast with Bridget and Mandy it's been like a year or two now. Wow, time flies. About 2 years ago, I did a podcast with them where I talked about the hierarchy. First place in the racial/gender hierarchy is white manhood. Your proximity to whiteness and or manhood will always include a privilege. It will always include a privilege. Whoever's in the room, I don't care if we all niggas, the closer you are to whiteness or manhood, you are the white man in the room by proxy in that moment, right? So number one is always going to be white masculinity. Now here's where shit gets tricky. Number two is conditional. If you are speaking in a matter of race, number two is always white women. All other women are literally measured against white womanhood, right? And so white womanhood is small, frail, demure, damsels. Oh my God, we must protect them. Black womanhood at the bottom of the food chain is fat, black, and masculine, right? Literally just the complete opposite. Which is why anti-fatness and anti-blackness are actually tethered to each other. Back in the 80s, white women were told, you're unattractive because your ass is too big. Who naturally has big asses, y'all? Who naturally has big asses? Somebody said the episode was called Jameson and Crystals. Actually, I think it might have been the episode before that. But I love that you guys watched, though. So, because white womanhood is number two when it comes to race, a lot of white women think, oh my God, I'm number two. I'm not number one. That must be the worst thing ever. But here, when shit gets funny, this is where the white feminism comes in. If you're talking about race, then yeah, you're number two. But if you're talking about misogyny, suddenly, guess who takes your place? Men of color. Black men and white women take turns being number two, depending on which metrics they're using. A white woman in the 80s working at an office job, there might be a token nigga who's working there too, but he's still a man. So now she's looking at all men as the same. Oh my God, feminism. The hardest thing that could ever happen is being a woman. She has one thing against her vagina. He has one thing against him, being a nigga. Which means he might get a business deal that she doesn't get, but she can go to the country club that he can't get into. So they take turns being number two. Guess who's not on either list, guys? Guess who's on neither list? Guess who is never number two? Guess who's somewhere at the bottom with the trans girls? Black women. We don't get to be on nobody's second list. We ain't never number two. Never. Literally the only person in society's hierarchy that I am above is a black trans woman. That's it. That's literally. Which is why when black women are being anti-trans, I'm like, how dare you be a white man to the only group that you have a privilege over? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Now, why am I sharing this with you guys? Because once you understand and acknowledge the hierarchy. Suddenly the optics of why what Kanye did created this mess that Beyonce is still paying for. Why her husband, who is now rich as fuck, who is now working with the man, who is now literally in the rooms with white men that even other white men look up to. He's ascended the top of the fucking mountain, and y'all are still playing in his wife's face. He gets to be number 2, she doesn't. That's why he speaks on her behalf. If I'm fuck dating. If I'm in a relationship, if I'm married with and gave 3 babies to a black man who gets to be in rooms that I don't get into, he better fucking get on that podium and defend me. Are you kidding me right now? So, rich black people are the ones who get their wigs snatched because you all lied and said there's no black and white, there's just green. At a certain point, you get so rich, race doesn't matter. And they got all this fucking money and they still can't get into that back room with Tony and them. That's why Kanye started having breakdowns. He was like, I'm Kanye fucking West. What do you mean I can't do this deal with Adidas? What do you mean I can't be in these fashion houses? What do you mean me and Louis Vuitton are arguing? I've been challenging them out since the 1900s. What's going on? A bunch of rich black people thought that y'all were telling the truth when you said if you get enough money, you can be as good as a white man. And when the white man laughed in their faces, they were like, oh shit, it was never about the money. I'm still a nigga. And so now what's ended up happening is there are the Kanyes of the world who have become disillusioned by this. Then there are the hoes of the world who, rather than be a anti-capitalist activist, which is a valid way to move, they're like, actually, no, I like money and nice shit. I didn't leave the Marcy Projects to be broke again. I want to be rich. My kids deserve to be rich. And, not but, and, if y'all let me in that room for more than 5 fucking minutes, I'm going to start chipping away in every room I'm in. Chip, 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 chip away. And my wife is coming with me because she's a megastar. Despite the fact that she's been leveraged around this fragile white bastion of womanhood. Despite the fact that our brother in arms positioned her as it being Beyonce versus Taylor. And now all these white folks who are otherwise good people and have black friends and maybe even take black dick and have biracial kids can't figure out why they hate Beyonce so much. Because their therapist isn't culturally competent enough to help them unpack racial bias. Because critical race theory is not being taught in Florida and other school systems. Because social media is dumbing us down, so now we don't understand what racism really is, and we think racism just means I don't like you because you're black. That's not racism. Racism is systemic, guys. It is systemic. The audience has become so stupid about what racism is, it's now allowing the architects of white supremacy to move in plain sight without being clocked. We've all been pacified through Instagram and TikTok, right? We've all been pacified. No, racism can't be as bad as it used to be. We have segregation. There's no colored water coolers anymore, so there's no racism. It's still there, guys. It's just gotten more clever. That's why Donald Trump sat there and fought against the stimulus. He fought against you guys getting those little checks that you love so much, right? Them $1,200, $1,500, $1,800 checks. He fought against the Democrats. And when they beat him and they went through, rather than conceding defeat, what did he say? He said, niggas are stupid. They've been taught to believe optics. If I sign my name at the bottom of this check, they're going to think I gave it to them, even though I've been busting my ass for them not to get it. And that's why you dumbasses with MAGA hats on, well, Donald Trump gave me a check. No, the fuck he didn't. Sexy Red, all of you out there, Donald Trump gave us money. No, the fuck he didn't. Those checks happened in spite of what he wanted. But he knew y'all don't research. He knew y'all just go on social media platforms and have outrage with the bots in the comment section. All it would take is him signing his name, and you dumbasses would think that he gave you a gift that he never meant for you. So in this landscape, Hove goes up and says, hey, y'all don't think it's wild that my wife has 32 Grammys, but you won't give her the big prize? You don't think we recognize that she got those Grammys in spite of what's happening, but because the Academy and the system are really uncomfortable with the black woman winning so much, you keep penalizing her for being so good? You don't think that's fucked up? Meanwhile, the white girl who's doing the same thing, if not lesser at times, let's be honest, we've seen those videos of the tour. The boom cat cack isn't hitting the same at both tours. Let's be honest, objectively honest. You don't think it's wild that the white girl who's doing the same thing with much less against her is being applauded? But my wife, who's literally scaling buildings and winning in spite of the system, you won't even acknowledge her once. Y'all don't think that's wild? That was a valid fucking question, guys. It was a valid question. But again, trauma. Oh no, we can't talk in front of the white folks. Why did he do that? Respectability politics. Respectability would be the death of us. If somebody had a gun to your head and was going to rob your house, you think if you're respectable enough, they give you your money back? Get the fuck out of here. Revolution is supposed to be uncomfortable. But this is what I love about Beyonce. Not as an artist, as a strategist. Right? This is what I love about her as a strategist. As somebody who's taken her anger and rather than show the lack of emotional regulation that Ye showed, she was like, nah, I'm going to take notes and beat them at their own game. Hey, Dexter. Hey, everybody who's coming in. I love y'all. We're talking about systemic racism and the ways that rich black people have learned recently in the last 15 to 20 years that even if you're a billionaire, if you're a nigga, you're going to be treated like a nigga. That's what you guys missed. Right? So while all of you are saying, why did Hov make that speech at the Grammys? It's so uncouth. Respectability politics, right? Because y'all love to tell niggas if we're respectable, we'll finally get our just dues. It's been about 400 years, guys. I don't think it's coming. Right? While y'all are freaking out about the dumb shit, Beyonce was being strategic. She was thinking to herself, well, no matter how much I dominate, they keep pretending like the whole world is not chanting my name. They keep playing in my face as if they're not going to give me my things. And when I try to be nice, they always find a way to make me shady instead. How do I do something that is so seismic? Look up that word for those of you who don't know it, because a lot of you have been saying you don't always understand the words I use. Seismic means it's really big. How do I do something so seismic? It literally, based on physics, fuck feelings or systemic oppression, the physics of what I'm about to do, how do I make it so seismic that it can't help but move the needle? Right? Because me being as good, if not better, didn't work. Me being nice and lovely to everybody didn't work. Respectability politics didn't work. Perfectionism, I'm a Virgo, I'm good at perfectionism, didn't work. Playing nice didn't work. How do I tell y'all got me fucked up in a way that is so loud, it can't help but cause a crack in the pillars that are holding up white supremacy, particularly in a system that is meant to destroy the joy of black creatives. It's meant to destroy the joy of all creatives, but you know, when the world gets a cold, the black community gets a flu, right? People say, why can't we say all lives matter? Why does it have to be Black Lives Matter? Here's the thing about being at the bottom of the food chain, guys. When you're at the bottom of the food chain, by the time the world has helped you, they've already helped themselves. What do they always say? Feed a woman, feed a nation. That's because women are at the bottom of the food chain. So by the time you've helped a woman, she can help everybody else. If we work towards liberation for black creatives, every fucking body else already gets to come along with us. Because there's the most barriers against us. So while they're removing barriers to help us, your barriers are getting removed too. I want you guys to think more critically about this shit. And so she thought about it. She said, okay, Taylor was a country star who was able to become a pop star and was pitted against me because Ye showed his ass that one day he got drunk. And they let her move around all she wanted. But when me and my country fried ass and my thick Texas accent with the scent of fucking Popeyes on my fingertips did a song about my father and the pain that he caused me and my mother, the most country thing on the fucking planet, guys, y'all wouldn't even acknowledge that single song as a country record. The spirit of fucking Dolly Parton was all through that bitch, and y'all still wouldn't acknowledge it as a country record. Lil Nas X came up with a country song. It took Billy Ray Cyrus jumping on the remix for it to go platinum. And mind you, she's from Houston. So this particular kind of whiteness is something that she grew up with. And here's the thing, guys. This is where I want you guys to pan out a little bit. When people in other countries think about Americans, what do they think about? They don't think about New Yorkers. They think about the American South. As an immigrant, I'm Afro-Latina for those of you who are new to me, right? As an immigrant who came to this country as a child, when I was trying to learn about American culture, I went straight to the South. So in my eyes, as an immigrant, the American South is the backbone of this country. It is the heartbeat of the country. The slaves that built this country, that heartbeat is in the fucking South. Which is why when Nicki Minaj made that track, making fun of Meg Thee Stallion for sounding like Bun B and Pimp C and sounding Southern, thereby implying that being Southern makes you unintelligent, that shit was anti-black as fuck, whether she recognized it or not. The Bible Belt is the heartbeat of this country, whether we like it or not. I know us liberal progressives on the coastal states love to think it's us. It's not. It's not. I promise you it's not. Right? And so, because the thump-thump of this country comes in the South, guess what? That's also the heartbeat of racism. Who better than somebody raised in the South who somehow made it into the private jets to dismantle the system from the inside? Because she not only has access to the top of the mountain, she came from an area where the niggas at the bottom are also living. She was never broke, let's be honest. Beyonce always had a nice house. But you don't have to be broke to understand your ecosystem. I think a lot of times in the Black community, we think that unless you were homeless living in your car, you're not allowed to say that you've had struggles. Why are we competing to see who can have the worst life to validate basic human fucking emotion? And so, here's what happens in the music industry, right? Everybody always says it's every Black History Month. Black music is American music. American music is steeped in blackness. Every single every single major genre you can think of that is seen as American was took from Black people and then resold as something white. If you don't believe me, look up Elvis Presley. Didn't that movie come out? Did they mention that? I didn't watch the movie because I'm not a big Elvis fan. Elvis Presley. Little Richard talked about it a lot. Shit, Mick Jagger from Aerosmith, right? Aerosmith is from Boston, where I'm from. Mick Jagger, when he got older, he kept it a buck and said, I'm going to be honest with y'all. If you watch all of my rock videos and all of my tours, I'm just imitating Tina Turner. One of the kings of rock and roll admitted all he did was imitate Tina Turner. American music is Black, y'all. Because music is something that marginalized people use to find their dignity even when the world is trying to crush their spirit. Who better than Black people to do that? Especially in this country, right? And so Beyonce said to herself, I'm going to beat them at their own game. Every genre of Black music that has been turned into shorthand for whiteness and then used to exclude us, I'm going to take that shit back. Y'all wouldn't acknowledge my one little country song? I'm taking it all back. Somebody said Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. Thank you, love. I'm not a rock girl, even though I might look like it today. I feel like I look very rock and roll today. So, those of you who don't know how this works, there's been a lot of rumors, and I'm starting to think that they might be true. I've been really hesitant talking about the rumors because even though, I live in LA and I hear stuff all the time, you never know when people, even if the rumors are true, sometimes people just change their mind last minute. But the biggest rumor that I've been hearing for a long time is that the game plan was to do first dance music and to acknowledge all the folks, particularly the queer Black folks, right? In the ballroom scene. Ballroom is Black and queer, Black and brown and queer. I always have to remember to say that. Shout out to the Afro-Latinidad, right? All those club kids in the 80s who didn't make it to Paris is Burning, who died without their names being said. I'm going to start with them. Because if you know anything about Black ballroom, you know that when people think of the word Vogue, they think of Madonna, not of Ninja or the House of Pendavis, right? They don't think of the people who actually invented voguing. They think of Madonna, a gorgeous blonde white woman, right? So she's like, I'm going to start with that because the kids still fuck with that kind of music. That is the easiest entree point, which was brilliant. If she had started with country, I don't think we'd be here. She was smart by starting off with the genre that we still have at least our fingertips on. You go to extra queer places like DC and New Jersey, and the house music is still thumping with the Black queer community. They tried to grab it from us, but we held on to it. So she started there, which is brilliant, by the way. Renaissance Part 1 was the Trojan horse. I'm going to remind these niggas where we come from in a way that is celebratory. Because I always say this, what is the point of Black liberation without Black joy? People who talk about liberation but who are miserable all the time weird me out. Like, why are we doing this? So you fought this hard to still be miserable? To pontificate and look down on people? Are you sure you wanted freedom, or did you just want your own turn of being the oppressor? She started off with Black joy to remind us why we're even fucking here. Brilliant. Again, as a strategist, I want to kiss the feet of whoever helped them conceptualize this. It's brilliant. I'm the cultural critic that publications call to fucking shatter people's dreams and tell them all the places they fucked up. So when I sat with this game plan, I was like, yo, I don't have any pushback. This is actually fucking brilliant. The data tracks. So she started off reminding the Black, particularly Black queer community, who the fuck they are and how much they've contributed. And there was the emotional, personal tie to Uncle Johnny, who she calls Uncle Johnny, but I think Uncle Johnny was actually Tina's nephew. But Uncle Johnny was a perfect example because she was able to tie it to something that actually meant something to her. I went to a director's workshop one time and they said, the way to make a story universal is to make it specific. The more specific you are, the more universal you are, because we all think those granular things that we go through are just about us. And those often end up being, ironically, the most universal things about humanity. It's a great tip for any storytellers, any writers, any musicians. The more specific a story is, the more universal it becomes. Because it forces us to look at our shared humanity in those quiet moments that we didn't think other people shared. So she started off with that. She made us celebrate. She had all of you wrapped around in tinfoil and shit, running through the streets. I bought tickets to be on stage in London, fucked around and yelled her name too loud, and she looked at me and she almost tripped. I'm sorry, B. I got excited. You guys don't ever buy tickets to be on stage unless you recognize that the artist can actually hear you. Because I'm the kind of girl who likes to scream, fuck it up, bitch! But when the bitch is right there and can hear you and looks over at you, it's a little awkward. But she had us celebrating, right? All last year she had us celebrating. Part 2 now is country music, her roots. Now that I've reminded you niggas who we are. Now that I've reminded you that Blackness also includes the gays. Because we love to act like being gay is a white thing, which is a tenet of white supremacy and trauma and misogyny. The reason why gay men are dragged is because they remind misogynistic men too much of women. I tell gay men all the time, you are a victim of misogyny too. Because gayness is seen as being weak and feminine. Even though you have a penis, you're getting our blowback, right? What did I say earlier? The system is built for whiteness and maleness. Proximity to being male and white, both if you're lucky, means you're on the winning team. And the further you get from maleness and whiteness, the more they clown you. And so gay men, while still men, gay equals feminine. Ooh, you're a man with an asterisk, right? And because trauma responses always have marginalized people wanting to impress their oppressors. That's why we don't like having real conversations in front of white folks. We don't want to look bad in front of massa. That's where that comes from, by the way, guys. Code switching in a professional setting is a survival tactic because you want to pay your bills. Code switching in a personal setting is a trauma response. I just hurt somebody's feelings in here, and I'm gonna let you sit with that because I still fucking meant it, right? So I say this all the time. Just because it hurts your feelings doesn't mean it's not true. If you're code switching in a professional setting, you're trying to feed your family. If you're code switching in a personal setting, a part of you has been taught that you need to assimilate for personal acceptance, and that's not about money anymore. That's why I don't code switch. When my white friends talk to me, you can see the giddiness in their face because they're like, this bitch is talking to us the same way she talks to the other black people. Oh, my heavens. She not switching up nothing. Okay. And you know why? Because I don't want to pander to their white fragility. I want to talk to you the way I talk to niggas. So that way, you know exactly where the line is in real life, not the fake line that I created for you because I don't want to hurt your feelings. I've taught all my white friends to hear me talk greasy. It lets me know how safe they really are. Not performatively safe. And the funny thing is, our relationships are actually richer because of it. And by the way, when I say white, I also mean white Latinos. Because let's be really clear, as an Afro-Latin woman, my Latin and J-Lo's Latin are not the same. Selma Hayek's Latin is not the same. Julissa Latin is not the same. Latino is not a race, guys. It's an ethnicity. So when y'all act like somebody who flat out is white presenting has no access to white supremacy or racial bias because they have an accent and they can sing all the words of bitty bitty bam bam. Bullshit. It's bullshit, guys. That's why white Cubans in Florida vote for Trump. I'm a black Cuban. Me and white Cubans ain't got shit in common when it comes to politics because I'm still a nigga and they're not. The fact that I curl my R's does not mean that I'm not black. It doesn't mean that they're not white. Y'all really keep falling for this shit. Somebody says, is there Aries in that chart? Absolutely. My Mercury is in Aries. Mercury is a sign of communication. That's why I talk spicy. I love that y'all picked that up, that my Mercury's in Aries. Wow, y'all are really smart. So she started off with dance. And then I started to hear rumblings. And by the way, shout out to everybody from Beyonce's team who works with her in any kind of way. You guys know I work in the press. You guys know I'm a journalist. And so you guys have been very respectful about doing that dance with me. And I appreciate it. I really do. I really, really do appreciate everybody that I know in the industry who trusts me. And I can see when you guys are talking to me and trying to pick your words because, I trust Blue, but she's also in the press. I get it and I appreciate it and I respect it, right? And so I want to let you know that there's nothing that I've been told in confidence that's going to come out in this. Nothing. I will say the things that now feel are safe to say because they're public conjecture, right? So for a long time, I heard rumblings that part 2 was going to be country and part 3 was going to be rock and roll. And I was like, rock and roll? I get the country because she's from Houston and she's proud. Why not gospel? My first thought was no. In the same way I want Rihanna to do a reggae album, I want Beyonce to do a gospel album because those are her roots, right? Me and Beyonce are the same age. So I remember being a teenager watching her do those church medleys and shit before we knew she was going to be Beyonce. I was like, why not gospel? But now it makes sense. They didn't take gospel away from us. The point of this is not to just do albums about every genre outside of pop. It's to take back our blackness. Jazz, they didn't take jazz away from us too. People think jazz is synonymous with blackness, even though there's a lot of white jazz singers who are highly popular. When you think jazz, you think niggas. When you think gospel, you think niggas. When you think country, who do you think of? Taylor Swift, even though she's pop now. When you think EDM, who do you think of? Diplo. You don't think of gay black and brown queers at the pier in New York. When you think of rock and roll, I promise you, you're not thinking of Tina Turner, even though you should. Right? Even though you should. Tina Turner is rock and roll. I personally am looking forward to the rock and roll era. I'm currently wearing my hair like this because this is what my spirit told me. And my boy Cheech asked me to keep my hair black until his wedding in April. But when she does the rock and roll album, that's the one I'm waiting on. I'm going to get some extra piercings. I'm going to dip into my 90s emo self. I can't wait for the rock and roll album. But right now, we're going to give country the respect it needs. We're going to give country the respect it needs. Rock and roll is number 3. By next year or so, maybe I can wear... I'm going to just stop there. But just know that this country album is the one in the middle. It's also the riskiest, right? It's the... Mind you, somebody said Afropunk going up. It's so funny. I actually dated one of the people who was one of the original Afropunks back in like 2003. And I remember when we were dating and he was like, yeah, I'm going to this thing. 2003, guys, that's 20 years ago. No, 21 years ago. Jesus Christ. 2003, 2004, I was dating somebody who was an Afropunk, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to this Afropunk gathering. And it's like, what the fuck is Afropunk? This was 20 years ago. And he was like, no, it's just a group of us punks, whatever. Da, da, da. I was like, oh, that's cute. So imagine me a decade later when I'm at the Afropunk festival, like, oh, shit, I owe that nigga an apology. I didn't see it coming. I can admit when I don't have foresight, I didn't see that coming, right? So the Afropunk movement has been around for a very long time. But country is the riskiest one. We already are prepped to do rock and roll for album 3 because of the Travis Scotts of the world, right? In the words of, I think, was it Hov or was it Ice-T? Some rapper once said, the biggest difference between rap music now and back then is back then, rap music was about drug dealers. Now rap music is about drug users. And drug use is very rock and roll. So the hybrid of blackness and rock and roll, for unfortunate reasons, has already been bridged in some way. But country, if there is one genre of music that niggas who are not from the South hear and inherently know, stay the hell out, you are not welcome here, it is country fucking music. This is the big one, guys. This is the big one. Somebody said 16 carriages is roots. Y'all so funny. But it's true though. This is the big one. The one place that white Americans who are proud of their racial bias, fuck subconscious bias, they wear that shit proudly with their Confederate t-shirts. The one place where white supremacists feel comfortable that they won't run into any, if at all, black people, maybe one or two, or maybe a couple of mixed race black people who have been taught to like feel like we don't want them, even though we're the most welcoming group known to man to our own detriment. All you gotta do is do a little TikTok dance after a cop kills a kid and suddenly we love you again. Like, we've been taught to really, really want approval. When you're at the bottom, you just want approval, guys. And I think it doesn't behoove us to pretend otherwise. The kid who is bullied, that nobody wants to talk to and all the other kids call smelly, if one of his bullies walks up to him and says, hey, we changed our minds, you want to eat lunch with us? He's saying, fuck yeah. God damn it, I've been waiting for somebody to accept me. That's what black pain looks like when it's being apologetic. If you in any way acknowledge our culture, our value, or our worth, we soak that shit up because we are lacking affection from the mainstream. And that is not something to be ashamed of. It's a symptom of abuse. The reason why I'm telling black folks to admit how much they want to be accepted by the mainstream, and mainstream means white, guys, is because if you're too proud to admit that, you can't learn from it. It's impossible to learn from a mistake that you refuse to admit you're even making. If we don't admit how much we want, need, and seek white validation, we have no fucking chance of overcoming it. No chance. For those of you who've taken my class, you know I always say the first step of a journey of emotional intelligence is acknowledgement. I won't go past go with anybody, romantically, friendship-wise, professionally, if they won't even acknowledge what's happening. Because anything that happens in a room where there's no acknowledgement is fruit from the poison tree. It's a waste of my time, right? So can we all acknowledge that subconsciously we've been taught to want to get approval from the mainstream? That in real life, all these black billionaires, megastars, juggernauts, titans of industry are getting their wigs snatched and coming back to us freaking out because they've made all this fucking money and it doesn't matter because they're still black. And in the midst of all this, you have a couple of celebrities who are like, you know what? They let us in the room, we're burning this shit down. And imagine what it's like. Because she said in the Renaissance movie that it took 4 years to work on just the first part. So this has been in the works for a very long time, guys. Donald Trump was still president when they started working on this shit. This has been in the works for a very fucking long time. So imagine you spent over 4 years working on this big master plan, huge master plan about how you are going to systemically chip away at a system that's been playing in your face for 2 decades. You hire all these black and brown creatives. You hire all these women and queers. You have your team scouting the entirety of the internet, making sure that all this young talent that would otherwise not get acknowledged gets to come with you. You do everything that Black community has been saying we should learn from the Jews and the Asians, right? Jewish people and Asian people always come together. They always work with each other. They always collaborate. They always pool their resources. So you say, bet. I'm going to do that then. And you do that. And the first thing they say is, oh, Beyonce's stealing from other creatives. Stealing? How am I stealing when I called the girl and cut her a check? The fuck? How am I stealing? Beyonce's stealing Usher's moment. Stealing? I've been working on this for years. I've been working on this before Usher even had a fucking Vegas residency. How am I stealing? I've known Usher since I was 12 years old. A lot of y'all don't know the facts of this. Usher and Beyonce have known each other since she was 12 years old. She was in a group called The Dolls. Look this shit up, guys. You guys know I do this for a living, so I have to know this crap. It's not a flex. She was in a group called The Dolls. And Frank Gaskin asked Usher, like, look, these little girls, you're a little bit older. Can you watch them for us? He babysat Beyonce. He was her babysitter in the industry when she was a little girl. And he told Frank, yo, there's something special about her. I think this one's going to be a star. And he was right. So imagine that little girl with the curly hair becomes one of the biggest, if not the biggest pop star in the world. While you're actually out here being a sexual menace, being sexy as shit and breaking up marriages while you're low-key have a girlfriend in the back. We both get to win. Me and my little sis get to win. And then she ends up marrying the biggest fucking rapper of the 90s and early 2000s. And now I'm watching them make babies and have lives together and have couple problems and go to therapy and work through their shit. I'm so happy for my little sis and my brother. And then my brother is so fucking smart and strategic. And he's older than me and little sis. Jay-Z's both of their elders. My big bro, who's married to my little sis, has somehow figured out how to get in cahoots with the biggest plantation in the world called the NFL. Where niggas get to be mandingos on the field but never own anything. He's somehow gotten in the room with them. The rich whites that other whites can't even get access to. And when he gets that fucking access, and he sees that I'm having a season of winning, a resurgence of my career, he picks up the phone and calls me and says, it's go time. In 2016, we were all hanging out in the box because you were supporting Beyonce when she was coming out on stage dressed like a Michael Jackson revolutionary to dance with fucking Bruno Mars and them and piss off the white folks. You were there in 2016 supporting her. It's your turn, bro. We got your back. Me and little sis have your back. That was family last night, y'all. It was fucking family. And a bunch of uneducated niggas saw people at the top of their game who have managed to hold on to their family and their love for each other for 30 years. For 30 years. She shared her moment with her brother and gave him his own moment. Yes, they're 3 years apart, guys. When you're 12, 15-year-olds can watch you. So you've known this man for most of your life. He's watched you grow up. You've watched him grow up. You now have kids, both of y'all. Usher got like 4 or 5 kids. Beyonce got 3. You're now cool with me and my husband. And my husband has an opportunity to put you on a night where I know I'm also going to get put on. And instead of celebrating that, instead of the Black community coming together and saying, oh man, we always talk about Black solidarity. We always talk about getting in the room and taking your crew with you. We always talk about how great it would be if we would band together because crabs in a barrel sucks, right? Instead of saying all those times we said, well, the Jews and the Asians, they know how to band together. The whites know how to band together. For once, we can finally say the whole family got to come along. Isn't this great? Instead of doing that, y'all got on Al Gore's fucking internet since you want to center whiteness so goddamn much and said, I can't believe Beyonce's shady fucking ass stole Usher's moment. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Yo, I'm going to tell you right now, I see why that lady doesn't talk to us. I see why Beyonce does not talk to us. She could retire tomorrow and be good for the rest of her life, and her kids would be good. She's doing all this shit to change the system for folks who come after her, and the very fucking people who are going to benefit from all the headaches she's going through, all the blisters she has on her feet, all the nights that she doesn't get to kiss her kids goodbye before they go to bed. The very folks who will get to benefit are being convinced by clickbait and commodified anger, full outrage, and fake controversy to drag her in the middle of this multi-pronged fucking attempt to shake up the system to benefit us all. Are you guys like, I'm sorry, I'm getting annoyed. She a better bitch than me. She's a better bitch than me. I'm gonna be honest. She's a better bitch than me. Beyonce's better than me. I might have looked at, if I was on my cycle, because I get real emotional, I might have looked at my Instagram last night and be like, well, fuck y'all then. Seriously. So, I'm not saying all this as a Beyonce stan or as a member of the Bayhive. I think I've mentioned on several occasions, I am not a member, not Bayhive, Beehive. I am not a member of the Beehive. I am what they call a beekeeper, which means I like fun shit, so I'll go to all the concerts, but I'm an independent thinker. And the hive, again, hive mentality is not my thing. I get paid to do otherwise. So I'm not a member of the Beehive, but as a beekeeper, someone who appreciates her in the social zeitgeist, even more as a figure and a political figure than a musician, to be honest, and who loves her work ethic and just loves a good show. And as somebody who's just blatantly sexually aroused by Usher, I love that man. He is, oof. For those who came, like I said earlier, I came into puberty around Usher, so I just think that man is fine as hell, right? As someone who adores Usher and deeply respects Beyonce, and who's in the same age bracket as both, so I've watched all this shit happen in real time, guys. I didn't Google this shit. When this shit happened, Google didn't even fucking exist. We were all doing slam books, burn books at school, and having to page each other. So as someone who's in the same age bracket, watched it in real time, and then ended up in an industry where I'm now getting paid to know about it as a matter of paying my bills, it infuriates me. Yes, he's very much a Libra, guys. We talked about it earlier. That's why I've dated so many Libras. I blame Usher. I really, really, really wish that so many of the Black influencers and content creators who last night saw that talking about Beyonce stealing Usher's limelight was going to go viral and fed into it for engagement, I really wish you guys had chose something differently. Not because I'm holding you up to a different standard than the white creators. I just wish you had all been more educated so you could have been talking to your audiences about this instead. So why I'm doing this video is because so many people who I otherwise respect, adore, and clap for got it wrong last night. And so I'm doing this video to not just educate the audience, but also educate the content creators, the people with platforms, the people who folks scroll looking for their name to engage about pop culture and politics. I'm begging you on behalf of all of us to get more educated on these topics, because your platform is a missed opportunity to work against the system as well. You don't have to be Beyonce to dismantle the system. I'm one person. And here's the funny thing. I'm a writer, and I write for publications that speak to millions. But individually, I only have tens of thousands that follow me individually. And yet, when I go on Hollywood Unlocked and there are millions of viewers, or I go and see The Thing Is, or when I was doing work over at Revolt, shout out to them and their team. You guys are going through a lot, and I've spoken to a couple of you, and my heart is with you in the wake of what's happened with Diddy. When I go to major platforms that have millions of people, when I'm talking on iHeartRadio, even though I have a small personal following, my voice can spread very far. And I think a lot of you don't recognize that. Please don't conflate your personal platform with your ability to have an impact on the bigger picture. Brick by brick, somebody wrote in the comments, exactly. So, somebody said protect blue at all costs. Y'all are funny. So, this is not me coming for your necks, although I will say the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. So I know for a fact that when I woke up last night from my little nap and saw everybody getting it wrong, and I got my little Twitter fingers and started going on threads and Twitter and Instagram like, yeah, what the fuck are y'all talking about? None of this makes sense. This is factually inaccurate. You're being illogical. I know that when I posted those comments, y'all were in your feelings. Oh no, blue post makes me look stupid. Or how about instead of saying it makes you look stupid, like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Let me get more educated. I'm going to tell anybody who's new to the space, it is impossible to watch my page for more than a couple of weeks and not feel uncomfortable, because growth is not comfortable, guys. So people being annoyed with me, people feeling upset, people feeling ashamed even, because some of you have learned to internalize shame in moments where you could just tell your ego to shut up and grow and learn instead. That doesn't bother me. It's par for the course. What I'm hoping is, if I've made you feel, no, not I made you, I didn't make you do shit. I was doing my job. If you've internalized shame or discomfort around finding out from watching my page that you were not as educated or nuanced on a topic as you thought, rather than getting mad at me and unfollowing me like some of you have, how about you just learn? Oh, I know I annoy y'all. It's fine. The same way y'all were caping for Monique, and I said Monique is actually a raging narcissist who knows how to play victim. Y'all thought, oh my God, who's a fat black woman? Of course she's going to cape for Monique. No, I'm also an emotional intelligence coach, and I know manipulation when I see it. I know a lack of accountability when I see it. I don't let optics fool me into being in allegiance with folks who know how to take the truth and wrap it around their bullshit and put it in a big gumbo where people can't tell the difference. Monique is incredibly manipulative and has never, ever taken accountability publicly for how she turned off people who were not Oprah and Tyler Perry. Just because she calls you baby doesn't mean that she's a nice person or that she's fighting for you. She's fighting for herself. Her lack of tact, compassion, or just basic accountability is something that doesn't speak to me. She's having an ego tantrum and convincing you that because she's fat and black that she must be a victim. I tell y'all all the time, emotional intelligence teaches people, it's taught me how to call a thing by its name even when it's a sympathetic character, right? And so, because I am someone who, despite being in the industry, still tells the truth, yes, you're going to be uncomfortable. That's okay. I'm okay with getting on your nerves. I'm okay with you being uncomfortable. I'm also okay with coming on here when I'm having a bad day or when I get it wrong and showing you my humanity. The reason I can talk shit about somebody like Monique who never takes accountability is because you guys who've been following me for a while, you see me constantly take accountability. My mother was going through her health scare last year. You saw me on here crying. I've never once pretended to be a know-it-all. I'm an ask-it-all. I might not have all the answers, but you damn well know I'm going to ask all the questions, right? I want to encourage you guys to move in the same way. Someone said, have you done a Monique video? No, I haven't. Partially because I don't want to give her the airtime. She'll just use it as an excuse to play victim again. They always say don't argue with the narcissist because the narcissist will always find a way to be a victim. I know when to pick my battles. So y'all can keep feeling bad. And mind you, a lot of skinny black women who thought that they were being a good ally by caping for the fat black woman are annoyed at me for saying what they wish they could. Wait, you could say that she's full of shit? I thought I was being nice by saying the lady was a victim. I never told y'all to lie. The biggest rule of this page is you ain't got to lie to kick it. Somebody said understood, but I would have loved to hear your views, but I get it. Yeah, maybe another time. And Bridget and I are working on some content. More on that later, and maybe she and I will discuss how to unpack that. But please don't ever assume this because a woman looks like me that I'm gonna immediately cape for her. I didn't cape for Lizzo either. Yeah. We have to be honest, guys. People at the bottom of the food chain can be just as manipulative as people at the top. We talked earlier about how white men at the top, black men and white women take turns being second, and black women are at the bottom with the trans girls. Just because you're at the bottom doesn't mean you're not taking notes from the people at the top. And so there are a lot of folks who look like us who use that to be manipulative. What's that old saying? Not all skin folk are kin folk. I've learned the hard way to never think someone is about me just because they look like me. And also to show compassion to folks, even if they look like me. Because some of y'all take it too far. You either enable people because they look like you, or you do tough love on everybody and have no compassion because they look like you. How about you skip both extremes and find that sweet spot in the middle? Somebody said, what about what happened in Rafah? The Super Bowl was happening. What about Usher standing for Zionists? I'm not educated on that, guys, so I can't speak to it. That's another thing too, guys. Gotcha doesn't work on me because as a truth teller, I am honest when I'm not educated on something. You just asked me a question about Zionists that I don't have any education on, so it'd be socially irresponsible for me to speak on it. I think we have a thing that happens all the time in social media where people ask you gotcha questions and we're scared to say, I don't know. So to the person who just asked that question, I don't know. I have no education on that, and so I cannot speak to it. Can we get in the habit of saying that, guys? Can we get in the habit of saying when we don't know things? And then seeking education later? Someone said they can't wait to have a reading from me. Oh, before I go, sorry. You guys, I do readings. OT, sorry, I'm gonna put the site. It's Blue Centric Shop. I always forget to do this. I'm gonna do it before I go for those who've been asking, because a couple folks in here were posting asking about how to do consultations and readings with me. I've been doing readings since, oh God, I don't want to say since what year. I feel like I've been talking about my age too much tonight anyways. I've been doing readings for tons of years. I do them, hold on, post it, bluecentric.shop.com/readings. Let me pin it. My calendar is very, very busy, so I recommend that if you want to get a reading from me, that you book it ASAPidly, because, yeah, I'm going to be traveling to the Bahamas and the East Coast next month. So I'm going to be in the East Coast next month, and I don't really do as many readings when I'm traveling out East because it's usually for like work stuff. I hope this live, for the rest of you who don't want readings, who just came to see what the fuck I was talking about, I hope this live was informative. I hope it compelled you to look at things deeper. I hope it gave you a framework to be more nuanced about your critiques. I hope it gave you an appreciation for Beyonce's plan, whether you like her or country music or not, because this is bigger than her or country music. It's about creating a different landscape where musicians of all races and creeds and genders don't get to be treated in unfair ways based on systemic oppression and racism. It's about blackness as well, right? And again, when you help the black community, every community that's seen as being ahead of us also benefits. So you're not just doing this as an ally, there's also a self-fulfilling reason to be an ally in this, because if the black community gets to a good place, by then everybody else has already gotten to a good place too. Because again, we're at the bottom of the food chain, not at the bottom of desirability, despite what the commercials tell you. I wish somebody would tell me I'm ugly. I would never believe them. Not at the bottom of worth, not at the bottom of intelligence or work ethic, but when it comes to systemic oppression, we are at the bottom of that. And it doesn't serve anybody to pretend otherwise, right? Toxic positivity would have you thinking that saying kumbaya, I don't see color, is all it takes, and that is naive as fuck. The revolution needs you to see color, because there's nothing wrong with our color. I hate when people say, I don't see color. Why? Being black is beautiful. Why wouldn't I want you to see my blackness? I want you to see my color. The problem isn't my race, it's racism, right? In the same way I said earlier, the problem isn't men, it's misogyny. I love men, I hate misogyny. So when I talk about misogyny, people were like, Blue, I went to an event the other night, and somebody was like, Blue, I saw you at this Grammy pre-party, and it was you and a bunch of dudes. And I was like, yeah, I have a lot of male friends. They were like, well, as much as you talk about misogyny, yeah, I talk about misogyny. Stop conflating misogyny with men. Misogyny is a system. I know good men, right? So I want you guys to get into the habit of building up that muscle of differentiating between symbols and systems versus human beings. All right, enough preaching. I'm super late for my meeting with Bridget. I gotta go. I love y'all so much. I hope this was helpful, and I will be saving this. But I'll actually be putting it on my YouTube, but I'll be saving it for a little bit on my Instagram. So if you see it on Instagram and catch it on Instagram, great. But if not, just go to my YouTube, which is also Blue Centric. All right, love you guys. Bye.